Chapter 421-423. After leaving the Hokage office, Kuroto did not go to his home, rather he sneaked into the Uchiha clan. The purpose was obviously to meet Shisui. Shisui greeted him, then asked, "Kuroto-san, everything in Kirigikure went as planned?" Kuroto nodded, yes, the problem of Kirigikure has been resolved so there shouldn't be any more issues. "And what about your search in the land of demons? Did your team find any trace of Akatsuki in the land of demons?" Shisui shook his head. "No, we searched almost the entire country but there was no trace of Akatsuki. It is likely that the Akatsuki's base is somewhere else." Kuroto nodded, then asked, "And how is the situation of the land of demons?" Shisui looked a bit saddened at the mention of the situation of the land of demons. Calming his emotions, he said, "As per the reports, the land of demons truly has become underworld. Every type of criminal from some small-timers to the cruelest and brutal ones can be found hiding somewhere in that country." Kuroto was silent and looked down. Most of the populace and authorities of that country were annihilated by Yomi and Shino. Since there is no one to manage that nation, so the criminals who have escaped from all the nations gathered there. And now it has become a den of dangerous criminals from all over the world hiding in that country, a land of demons in the truest sense. The 5 great nations also don't have enough means in their hands to solve this issue, because there is no end to this problem. They can clear up the criminals there, true, but how many times? Once, twice, thrice, but after that? A time will come when they will stop caring and let those criminals gather in one place, rather than causing trouble all over the world. Therefore, the 5 great nations have come to a unanimous decision to let that country be as is, and closely monitor it. But with all those criminals in that country, it is also possible that Akatsuki's new base is located in the land of demons. This is why Sandame assigned a mission to Shisui's team to search for the location of the new base of Akatsuki in that country. But it seems that these efforts were proven to be fruitless, as Akatsuki's base is unlikely to be in the land of demons. Kuroto sighed, and changed the topic. "Anyway, I was here to inform you about the Hashirama cell implantation. Just give me 2 days. Within these 2 days, I have to take care of some matters. After that the implant operation can be done." Shisui nodded. "I have discussed the problem of my blindness with Sandame-sama and told him that the problem can be solved but I would need some time, so after some consideration, Sandame-sama agreed to give me a holiday." Kuroto nodded, and asked, "You made sure to not mention anything about Hashirama cell implantation, right?" Although Kuroto knew that Shisui would not be foolish enough to mention it, he still needed to confirm. After all, we are talking about the same Shisui who disclosed Koto Amatsukami to Sandame-sama. Shisui nodded. "I did not mention anything about Shodame-sama's cell implantation. I said that it is secret Uchiha Jutsu." Kuroto nodded. This was necessary. Then looking at Shisui's expression, he asked lightly, "Worried that the operation will fail?" Shisui nodded slightly. When it comes to matters of life and death, it is natural for people to feel a bit uneasy. Truth be told, Shisui is not afraid of death. Fighting and dying for the sake of the village and peace would be worth it, but dying on an operation table? It's the last thing he would want. Kuroto said in encouragement while lightly ruffling Shisui's hair, "No need to be so worried. Before, I may have been a bit uncertain about the probability of the success, but now I can guarantee, this operation will 100% be successful." 100% guarantee. Shisui muttered with surprise, then asked, "If the operation is successful, will my visual prowess really return?" Kuroto folded his hands over his chest, and nodded. "Not only will your visual prowess return but it will be enhanced as well. Moreover, once the implantation is successful, a lot of future prospects will also be opened that you can choose to increase your strength for the path ahead." Kuroto is not just giving assurance to Shisui, this is his confidence. After awakening the Manjikyu Sharingan, Shisui himself possesses a very potent yin chakra, and once the Hashirama is successfully implanted into Shisui and he acquires the yang chakra of Hashirama cells, then the yin and yang will bring a qualitative increase in Shisui's strength, which will not only increase Shisui's ocular power but also increase his physical strength significantly. In both cases, Obito is a clear example. On the night of Kyuubi's attack, he was able to control Kyuubi with just one Manjikyu Sharingan, and Kuroto obviously knows that Obito's Manjikyu Sharingan is not specialized in genjutsu like that of Shisui or Itachi, or Fugaku's, and yet he controlled the Kyuubi. And it must not be forgotten that the Kyuubi that Obito controlled on the night of Kyuubi's attack was the complete Kyuubi, not the half-yang Kyuubi that Yondaime sealed inside his child Naruto, and he did all that while battling Yondaime Hokage. This feat alone shows just how much visual prowess Obito had acquired. Then there is the matter of increase in his physical strength and defenses. The yang chakra obviously enhances physical strength, and because of this, Obito was able to bear the damage from Rasengan. Yondaime-sama's Rasengan, as well as Naruto's Kurama chakra enhanced Rasengan in the face and hand, and yet only suffered slight scratches, so overall, he was perfectly alive and kicking. After listening to Kuroto, Shisui did not have any exciting expression, he just muttered with an eerie calmness, "If that is the case, then I hope so too." After a pause here, he continued, but Kuroto-san, in the off chance that the implantation operation fails and results in my death, then I hope that you can pass on my Manjikyu Sharingan to Itachi. Because of bearing the Tenseigan, Manjikyu Sharingan is of no use to you, but they may be useful for Itachi. Kuroto thought a little, then nodded. Although Kuroto is certainly confident that the operation will be successful, so there is no harm in agreeing with Shirsue's request. Besides, Kuroto also knows that even in the canon, Shirsue entrusted his Manjikyu Sharingan to Itachi. In fact, he did not just entrust his Manjikyu Sharingan, he even entrusted his will and the hope of protecting the village, Uchiha name, and peace to Itachi. Therefore, Kuroto wasn't surprised when Shirsue said this to Kuroto. After some more talks with Shirsue, Kuroto left Shirsue's home. Within these 2 days, he has to complete a lot of things. Firstly, Kuroto has to sell the Byakugan he obtained from AO to the Hyuga clan, then use the money he will obtain to pay off Tsunade-sama's debts in various gambling houses all over the Land of Fire, then he has to also buy some pieces of equipment for his further experiments. Originally, such trivial matters were not so problematic and could be resolved pretty easily using the black market. However, because of Amitsukami and Akatsuki organization, the 5 great shinobi villages have almost paralyzed the underground markets in the 5 great nations and the surrounding countries. So, Kuroto would have to put some effort into it. While Kuroto was busy dealing with the matters of selling the Byakugan and paying off Senju Tsunade's debts, 2 newly created teams of Akatsuki, consisting of Kagaya Takashi, with Chinoike Majida and Hoshigaki Kisame with Yuki Kahayo were also making their move in the newly reformed country, the Land of Sound. The mission of these 2 teams is to eliminate Orochimaru, and according to the intelligence given to the 4 by Toby Sr., their target, Orochimaru was spotted in this country several times. After arriving at the border of the Land of Sound and Land of Fire, the 4 did not rush into the Land of Sound. Instead, they hid in the forest around the border waiting for the arrival of the leader of the team. As per the instructions given to them by the one called Zetsu, an official member of the organization will meet up with them in this small forest, and then the 5 of them will venture deeper into the Land of Sound to eliminate Orochimaru. But they have been waiting for quite a while now, and yet there has been no sign of this so-called leader, which has made Takashi a bit impatient. Is anyone going to come, or are we left alone just like what happened last time? If this continues to happen, then it's going to be really annoying. Kisame said with a smirk, perhaps our captain had to face some problem and couldn't come at the right time, just like the last time. Kahayo was silent and watched the discussion of the other 3 while sitting on a rock protrusion. At this moment, Majida said, everyone stays on guard, someone is approaching. Whoosh. Not long after Majida's words, a figure appeared in front of them. Similar to the other 4, he too wore the Akatsuki turtleneck cloak and had a large broadsword strapped on his back. This was none other than Biwa Juzo, one of the former 7 swordsmen of Kirigakure. The 4 were surprised when they noticed the person who appeared before them. Kisame said, "Aw. I did not expect Juzo-senpai to be the leader of this mission. Does Akatsuki want us Kiri-nuke-nin to stick together or something?" Juzo sighed, "Don't ask me. I really did not want to do this, but the leader's order. So anyway, the 5 of us will search this country to find any traces of the traitor Orochimaru, and kill him." And announced the content of the mission. The 4 nodded, they were very well aware of this. Juzo looked at them with a helpless expression. He did really want to deal with other Kirigakure shinobi, but what can he do? Orders are orders, and he has to follow them. In fact, aside from Obito's intention of reuniting the former Kiri shinobi, one of the main reasons why Akatsuki sent him is a different story altogether. It was because of Obito's supposed death. It was him who kept Enai Yujito, the Jinchuriki of Nibi in Genjutsu, but because Obito died at the hands of Homusubi, so the Genjutsu on Yujito was released. As such, she regained consciousness, and obviously she tried to escape. Nagato and Konan were not present at the base, because Nagato had to get familiar with his new strength. Similarly, Sasori had to create and repair all his puppets, and get familiar with the new form of puppetry. The same was the case with almost all the other members of Akatsuki, so the only person keeping watch over Enai Yujito in the immediate vicinity was a Zetsu clone and Kakuzu. Enai Yujito tried to sneak out but couldn't because of Zetsu clone. Angered and ashamed for what becoming a puppet, Yujito completely liberated the Nibi in an attempt to forcefully break out of the base. Nibi fully cooperated with her, so the power Yujito displayed was that of a perfect Jinchuriki, which was much more than what Kakazu alone could have handled, and then we all know how that went. Kakuzu was thrashed brutally. Even if he is strong and has 5 lives, it didn't change anything. Because a cat has 9. 4 of the 5 hearts Kakuzu had recently stolen to restock his hearts after the Summit War were destroyed by Yujito. In fact, the last heart would have also been destroyed as well if not for the fact that he managed to sneak inside the earth in time, and Uchiha Shinichi and Hiriko, who were called by Zetsu clone, came out and suppressed the feline in due time. Although Yujito was controlled, however, the damage done to the poor Kakazu couldn't be undone. It was only a few days ago that he restocked all the 5 hearts and planned to go on a few bounty missions to acquire some of his dearest wealth, but those warm hearts that he worked so hard to acquire were lost again. Afterward, Akatsuki learned the reason why Yujito managed to break free of the Genjutsu. However, this incident also made them understand that just a Genjutsu is not enough to keep the Jinchuriki in check because once the caster is in a serious problem the control over the Jinchuriki would weaken. And that's where Nagato comes in. With his black chakra receivers, Nagato would be able to keep the Jinchuriki in check, but it would take some time for Nagato to complete his training session and come back, so until then both Shinichi and Obito/Tobi Jr. are supposed to keep Yujito in check. And since Shinichi had to keep watch over Yujito, as such Juzo was free for the time being, therefore, he was sent by Akatsuki to the Land of Sound as the leader of the 4 new members. His objective was to assess the abilities of the new members and also aid them in eliminating Orochimaru, if possible. Akatsuki is not so adamant about eliminating Orochimaru, firstly because they too understand that killing Orochimaru is not so easy, even if Orochimaru can be defeated, but killing him is another matter altogether. And the second reason is that Black Setsu has secretly taken interest in one of the Kenjutsu Orochimaru is researching. So, sending these 5 members after Orochimaru is also for the purpose of testing out that newly created Kenjutsu. Of course, the 5 of them are unaware of all the plans, and without any more delay, and ventured deeper in the direction of the Land of Sound, in search of Otogakure. These 5 are yet not aware, but Otogakure isn't actually a real shinobi village, but a network of laboratories composed of various hideouts and bases scattered throughout the Land of Sound and various other countries including the Land of Wind, the Land of Grass, the Land of Waves, the Land of Rivers, the Land of Sea, as well as the Land of Demon along with a few other countries. After a day and night of search based on the intelligence given to them by Toby Sr., the 5 of them finally arrived at a village, which according to them is somehow connected to this mysterious shinobi village called Otogakure that is further connected to Orochimaru in some way. This is a small dilapidated village, most of the houses here seem to have been burnt down, and the others have been collapsed. From the first look, it appears as if the village has been abandoned for years. After taking a look around, Kisame asked in confusion, what would Orochimaru be doing in a place like this? Kahayo said in an indifferent tone, perhaps looking for something. Juzo thought about Kahayo's words, and they seem reasonable with Orochimaru's character, so he instructed, look around more carefully, it's possible that we might find some clues that would point us to Orochimaru. But different from the other 4, Vegeta frowned upon looking at the village, then said, what we are seeing is not real, it's a Genjutsu. A Genjutsu. Everyone exclaimed and instantly disrupted their chakra. Following the chakra disruption, the sight before them changed completely. They were not present in a village but were in a forest, and were surrounded by many shinobi. Each of them was dressed in unusual clothing that does not belong to any known shinobi village. Their uniform consisted of light lavender color, and the common part of their clothing was a rope-like belt tied in an inverted bow around their waist. Additionally, they also wore a forehead protector with the symbol of a musical note. Kahayo asked in confusion, what are children doing here? What made them frown more is the fact that these shinobi were young children between the age of 7 to 13, even the oldest of them seemed to be only about 16 years old. The eldest of the children, the one with short brown hair asked, who are you people and what are you doing here? Vegeta asked, are you children shinobi of the newly established Otogakure? The eldest of them nodded, and asked, yes, and what do you people want from us? Takashi asked Juzo, what to do with these children? Juzo put his hand on the hilt of Kubikuribocho, and said, they are just children, what's there to think about? Just eliminate them. But Kahayo immediately interrupted Juzo, no. They are just children, our target is Orochimaru, nobody said about killing young children. Juzo said, I don't care if they are children or not, we need information about Orochimaru's whereabouts, and they are likely to have it, so there is no reason to let them escape. In their eyes, whether children or not, it does not matter, what matters is completing the mission. But Kahayo still shook her head, and said in a chilling tone that clearly stated that she won't accept otherwise, even if that is true, they shouldn't be killed, incapacitate or knock them unconscious, but no one will kill them. Feeling the decreasing temperature around their surroundings, the other 4 looked at each other helplessly. Juzo said with a helpless sigh, do as she says, do not kill them, knock them unconscious and tie them up. The other 3 nodded, then started to move with the intention of quickly knocking down the kids. It's just that nobody here truly understands that these kids are not so simple, and even a moment of hesitation against these children will result in death. After all, these children have been personally trained by Orochimaru. With Juzo's command, all 5 including Juzo acted. They have no intention of wasting too much time on these children because who knows where Orochimaru is hidden, it is even possible that he is watching them from the shadows waiting for the best opportunity to strike. Takashi was the fastest, and while bones penetrated out of his skin, he went after the kid with brown hair, but before he could do anything to the other person, 2 kids, one with white hair the same as his, and the other with orange hair intercepted him with a heavy double kick in the face. Muff muff. As he flew away, Takashi regained his balance using the branch of a tree, then took a closer look at the 2 kids, and can't help but frown at the appearance of the child with white hair. Are you Kimimaro? Takashi was certain of his guess because even as a child, Kimimaro was quite famous in the Kagaya clan. His abilities and talents were so high that even the patriarch, the strongest of the clan, feared Kimimaro's potential. Kimimaro did not nod or deny, he just walked forward as many bones appeared out of his body, and he said, "We will be the ones fighting you." The moment Kimimaro said so, the boy with orange hair laughed maniacally, "Ihahaha. That's right, your opponent will be us, so don't even think about going after Tenzo-san." Takashi frowned, as he looked at the child with orange hair who no longer seems to be a human, at least from all that stuff growing out of his body, along with his cruel laugh. He knew that Kimimaro isn't to be taken lightly, but this kid with orange hair is also not simple. Damn, are they really just kids? Putting aside the monster kid, Takashi felt really sad upon looking at Kimimaro. It's really a shame, both of us are the last survivors of the proud Kagaya clan, and we are now fighting each other as enemies. It matters not to me whether we are of the same clan or of the same village, for there is only one person whom my loyalty is dedicated to. I shall kill you here and now. Kimimaro said, and rushed forward. Yugo, use Tactic 3. Yugo nodded and started to create many jet-like appendages on his back. He then maneuvered through the air using the blast created by the jet-like appendages that enhanced his speed and rushed towards Takashi to deliver another solid kick in the face. Takashi smirked, "Big words for a kid who is only half as young as I am, but I shall listen to you now, and test whether you stand up to them. Besides, the least I can do as your senpai and teach you some of the jutsu of your clan." And met the attack head-on with spiked bones coming out of his skull. And while Takashi battled Kimimaro and Yugo, another clan reunion going on the other side of the battlefield. Kahayo, wearing the Akatsuki cloak, and a hooked mask over her face printed the hand seals, and shouted, "Ice release, earthen chains of ice." As soon as her words fell, the temperature of the surroundings grew colder, the moisture condensed and ice started to appear. Earthen chains of ice can easily trap and restrain her targets in condensed ice. And under her command, ice chains condensed and rushed forward to trap both of her targets in ice, but this time, her attack did not work, because the children she fought aren't simple. Haku, wearing the Otogekure combat uniform, and a hooked mask quite similar to the one used by Kahayo, rapidly printed hand seals, and shouted, "Ice release, demonic mirroring ice crystals." Haku then jumped inside the ice mirror and used it to escape the effect of earthen chains of ice, and said to his partner, "Guren-san, those particles of ice can freeze us to death, so be careful." The girl named Guren nodded, and said, Fear not, no one can harm me unless I want them to." At the same time, she printed hand seals, and shouted, "Crystal release, crystal armor." Instantly, under Guren's command, the ice particles on her skin turned into particles of pink crystal, which further expanded and formed an armor-like skin upon her. Looking at the two children who survived her attack so effortlessly, Kahayo was shocked. She was more shocked upon realizing that both of them are Kekii Genkai users, a child of the Yuki clan. Were there any survivors other than me and my brother? And the other one, she uses crystal release. After the first series of attacks, this time, Guren and Haku took the initiative. Guren printed hand seals, and shouted while touching the ground, "Crystal release, divine pathway jutsu." Instantly, a long stream of sharp blue crystal started to sprout out of the ground and rushed towards Kahayo to bind or pierce her. Kahayo leaped backward in order to dodge that attack, but at the same time Haku leaned half of his body outside the ice mirror, and shouted, "Secret technique, 1,000 flying water needles of death." Under Haku's command, thousands of water needles rushed towards Kahayo who was still in midair. At the same time, Kisame with Samahata in his hands was looking at the 16 or 17 years old kid in front of him and asked, "So, what's your name?" The other boy was confused as to why would the enemy ask his name. But he decided to comply with either party's request and said, "It's Tenzo." Kisame nodded, then asked again, "Are you a shinobi of the Hoshigaki clan?" Tenzo frowned, and asked, "Why are you asking me such a thing?" Kisame smirked, and said, "Well, looking from here, two of my companions seem to be having a reunion with their clan members, so I thought that maybe, you two are a shinobi of the Hoshigaki clan." But Tenzo shook his head and said, "No, I am not from Hoshigaki clan, I am Tenzo, Iburi Tenzo, a shinobi of the Iburi clan." Kisame nodded, "It appears that I was mistaken. No matter, let us begin. I shall see what sort of abilities you of the Iburi clan have." "Before we fight, would you mind telling me the purpose you people are here for?" asked Tenzo. Kisame chuckled, "Defeat me and I shall think about telling you." And without waiting any longer, Kisame rushed towards Tenzo with his Samahata drawn out. Tenzo wasn't panicked in the slightest and started weaving hand signs, then shouted, "Wood release, silent strangle jutsu." Both of Tenzo's arms transformed into the shape of a wooden block and rushed toward Kisame in order to strangle him. Kisame was surprised, and can't help but think, a wood release user. Is there any Kekii Genkai we won't be seeing here? But even if he was busy with some thoughts, this didn't stop him from cutting the wooden blocks with his Samahata. As such, a battle between a tailless bijou versus a wood-style user who can easily restrain a bijou started. The fourth battlefield is different from the others, as it is completely covered in smoke. Chinoike Majida was looking around vigilantly. He has already tried to get out of here several times, but no matter how much he tries, the cover of smoke does not end. It's as if I am trapped in a genjutsu loop. Thought Majida, but I know for a fact that this cover of smoke is not a genjutsu. While Majida tried to figure out what sort of jutsu this smoke cover is, two kunoichi were watching him from a distance while they sat on a tree. The older one, who appeared to be about 13 years old, spoke with a bit of an unsure tone. Hebihime-chan, are you sure this method will work on him? The younger one, about the age of 11 years old, with the name Hebihime, nodded with a sly smile. Do not worry, Yukimi-san, with the poisonous smoke covering this part of the forest produced by the Kekii Genkai of the Iburi clan that you possess, no matter how much he tries to get out of here, the cover of smoke will always follow him. And he will not be able to figure that the cover of smoke is also moving because I am covering the forest in a genjutsu. He will walk, and walk, and walk, but there won't be any exit or entrance. Slowly and steadily the light poison will start to affect him, and he will collapse. I do not know what dojutsu he possesses, but as long as he cannot see us, his dojutsu will be useless and he won't be able to sense the very light poison in the smoke. The older one, with the name Iburi Yukimi, nodded, then said, but still, we must be vigilant. The people he came up with looks very strong, so we shouldn't let our guard down, because if he were to escape, then Orochimaru-sama might be disappointed with us. At the mention of Orochimaru, Hebihime nodded fiercely with a heavy blush on her face. I will also make use of my snakes to take him down early. He is in the possession of a dojutsu-type Kekii Genkai. Maybe Orochimaru-sama will be interested in his dojutsu, and if I were to bring his dojutsu to Orochimaru-sama, maybe Orochimaru-sama will praise me. Yukimi did not say anything at Hebihime's comment of wanting to be praised by Orochimaru-sama, because Yukimi was already used to it. Besides, her thoughts were directed to somewhere else. I hope you will be safe, Tenzo. Flashback no Jutsu. Start. Following the events of the death of all but one member of the Iburi clan. You look just like my Onie-san, Yamato-san, said a young Yukimi to a young Yamato as they witnessed the death of all the members of the Iburi clan. Is that the reason why you mistook me for him and referred me by the name, Tenzo? Yamato asked curiously. Yukimi nodded, Yamato was in deep thought upon hearing Yukimi's words. After a lot of consideration, he said, I do not have any memory of my childhood. The closest thing to me as a parent is Orochimaru-sama, but he never gave me a name, said that I must choose myself, so I took the name Yamato at that time. But if it's alright with you, I would like to take the name Tenzo because, in this way, I feel connected. I feel that I too have some past. Yukimi thought about it a little, then nodded with a cheerful smile. Alright, in that case, I will continue to call you Tenzo or perhaps Tenzo-san. Everyone including Orochimaru was surprised, but did not care much, and started to refer to him as Tenzo of the Iburi clan. Since then day, Yamato became Tenzo of the Iburi clan. And with the rest of the Iburi clan now dead, Iburi Yukimi followed Tenzo and became another subordinate of Orochimaru. Flashback no Jutsu, end. And finally on the fifth battlefield. It's really ironic, don't you think, muttered Juzo with his Kubikuribocho in hand as he looked at the man standing before him. The man was alone and standing with a sword in his hand that resembled a large needle. This large needle-type sword is none other than one of the missing 7 swords of Kirigikure. It's the needle sword, Noiburi. And the man wielding this sword is none other than the demon of hidden mist, the one and only, Momochi Zabuza. Zabuza looked at Juzo, and nodded, it really is. We the shinobi of Kirigikure are now at each other's throats. The most hilarious thing is that neither of us is fighting for Kirigikure. A cold wind blew rustling the clothes of the corpses lying around, and the curtain rose to another battle.